Yes, during tonight's closed session, one agendized item, a claim under the Tort Claims Act filed by the individual stated in the agenda. The board considered the claim, and on a motion made by Director Mayo, seconded by Director Couch, with each and all 5 board members voting in favor, Mayo, Couch, Burke, Corbett, Arsanti, all voting in favor of rejecting the claim. Motion.
Well, it's just a report out, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yes. I deem the report received and entered into the record. The next item of business is our regular meeting agenda, 7 p.m. We'll start off with a roll call and then go to a pledge of allegiance. First, the roll call.
Director Barsanti.
Here.
Director Burke. Here. Director Couch.
Here.
Director Mann.
Present.
President Corbett.
Here. How about Shell? Would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is any additions to the agenda. They require a 2/3 vote and proof of why we couldn't have otherwise put it on the agenda. Do I have any, additions to the agenda?
President Corbett, there are no additions to the agenda.
Okay. Any board members? Public? Okay, can I have a motion then to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second it.
Okay. Discussion? Hearing none, could you please call the roll?
Director Barsanti.
Yes.
Director Burke. Aye. Director Couch.
Yes.
Director Mann.
Yes.
President Corbett.
Yes. We have, now's the time and place for public hearings. We have no public hearings scheduled under our agenda. So I'm going to move on to public comment. And this is available to any person who may address the board at this time upon any subject not identified in the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the McKinneyville Community Services District. However, any matter that requires action will be referred to staff for a report of action at a subsequent committee or board meeting, and that's because the Brown Act doesn't allow us to act unless it's been properly noticed. As to matters on the agenda, an opportunity will be given to address the board when the matter is considered. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and letters should be used for complex and important issues. Follow up on. With that, I will open it up for public comment. Is anyone from, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yes, I would like to take the opportunity during this to, as you guys are aware, we had a couple openings in our Parks Department, and I want to introduce you to our new employees that we've hired. The first one is Cecil Lawrence. Stand up, Cecil.
All right.
Cecil,
Welcome on board.
Welcome. Cecil's been with the district for 5 years, seasonal work, waiting for an opportunity for a door to open. We had a few people disappear and an opening happened, which is weird. Just kidding. People left. Cecil applied, got it. We're happy to have Cecil on. He comes with the experience and knowledge by working here seasonal. And was now moved here from Illinois. How many years ago was that, Cecil? 10 years ago. So we're happy to have Cecil on full time. Thank you, Cecil.
Welcome.
Our next employee, John Truin. We snagged him from Samara Restoration, and he was a technician there for 3.5 years. And prior to that, he lived in San Francisco Bay Area, where he was a park ranger for 16 years. Wow. So we're excited to have John on. He's our newest guy. He's been 3 weeks, somewhere around there, 3 weeks now. So we're happy to have both these guys on. Once you get to know their face, in case you see him out there in the park or anywhere. And I'm excited to have both these guys on our parks team.
Welcome.
I haven't done this before, do I? So you might want one from
You don't have to.
You don't have to now.
No.
But you'll want to pull the microphone down or,
I just wanted to express my thanks to MCSD for everything that you guys did while we had the power outage, because it made what would have been a difficult situation a whole lot more bearable for everybody in the entire community. And I know that that took prior planning on the part of everybody that is part of the organization, and it meant a lot to everybody that I knew. And so I just wanted you to know that the community is thankful for it. I know it wasn't true in all of them, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and then I also want to thank staff. I really liked it when Greg Orsini got out a message we would have water, because there was a lot of concern about that. And then subsequent follow-up messages because of the huge number of conflicts from the official sources. It was sort of a relief to get what's happening on the ground from our general manager. So thank you. I thought, and staff did just a great job in coping. So, yes.
So I guess since we're talking about this, I wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that we had a nice place to put that emergency tent up over here, and they were great. I came down every morning and talked to them and delivered 30 units, the lights and the charts and the flashlights to people that didn't have access to do that. And so that was really, really neat. And I appreciate that our district was able to provide that.
yeah. And so on that note, thanks for bringing that up, because there was an agreement that had to be signed. They wanted me to enter into a 5-year agreement for that, and I told them that I would give them a week, and that if they wanted a long-term agreement, that they'd have to bring back another agreement, and that I would basically bring it to the board of directors to get the board's approval on that, because they're looking for a very long-term agreement, and we might not necessarily want to put them where they landed at. They had that whole area marked out in the agreement that I signed, but that might not be the best place to put it.
So we'll be getting that brought back sometime to us, maybe, or maybe not.
I would hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Was the problem that the spot might change, or just the length of time in general?
They want a 5-year agreement. So, and I just wanted to, and the spot was inconsequential for the first one, but we'll kind of constrict where they can set up if we enter into a longer term agreement. But if there is a longer term agreement, I would bring it to the board. Russ wasn't in the office, so one of Russ's colleagues actually reviewed. He was doing the same thing for Fortuna too. So we were just able to make some minor adjustments to the indemnity clause in it, and I signed it. But it was reviewed by district council.
Thanks for doing that.
All right. Any further public comment of any kind? Does any member of the public want to speak? If I don't hear anybody wants to speak, I'm going to close the public comment. So, one more time, does anyone want to speak? Okay, then I'm going to close the public comment period. The next item is the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to take any item off the consent calendar? Either staff or board? Audience? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes. Continue to new business. Review the tactical planning matrix for the CY 2020. I feel like those dark glasses you can put on. You ought to have all the TAC report here. So maybe staff will make a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up to the board for comments, as the best I can determine, that's our job. On this
A
side.
brief public, or brief. So, anyway, thank you, President Corbett. So anyway, this is the first year that you'll be reviewing attachment number 1, which starts on page 36. It used to be called the strategic planning matrix, and since the strategic plan has, the format of the strategic plan has changed, we have opted as an operational tool to rename this the tactical planning matrix, remove anything that used to say ongoing on it, and now created this this matrix. And this matrix will be our tool, our internal tool, and it will serve multiple purposes. One thing, it'll be a management tool to make sure that we're tracking our projects, our multi-year projects. And as you can see, if you look at this, these projects are the thing that they have in common is these aren't ongoing projects, and they're multi-year. They're more than 1 year, and we'll track multi-year projects using this matrix, including the strategic plan. And what we do is we'll update this annually, and then we'll bring this to the board for approval, and then that will kick off our budgeting our budget, creating our budgets. And we'll use this to if these projects are related to capital improvement plans, you'll see capital improvement. They'll basically be placeholders in the capital improvement plan for these, and some of these might be operational in the operational budget, and they'll show up. The monies for these will show up in the operation budget. But there's not a delineation on the matrix related to whether these are capital plans or operational monies for it. That'll be handled internally, and it'll serve multiple purposes. One, it'll be a management tool for the general manager to be able to use to track what's going on. It'll also be a management tool for the department heads to be able to make sure that they're catching everything and putting it in the budget in its appropriate place. And that's basically all I have. And then also it'll be a way for the board to be able to assess how busy we are and to see related to capacity. And at this time, this is an informational item and will not require any approval. But we're open to comments and input, suggestions.
I have a question. So if ongoing projects have been removed, then this is only sort of the above and beyond the ongoing work. So by looking at this alone, it doesn't help us understand, the capacity of the district, or does it? Is there a way that, as a director, I can more fully understand how this relates to capacity at the district? That's a good point. The only thing, my concern or the thing that the issue that I had with it is that how granular did we get with the ongoing things, and we just determined as a group that we should pull anything that was ongoing, anything that's a day-to-day requirement of district staff, and we would just go ahead and pull it. Leslie, did you want to?
I think, well, this maybe was my interpretation, and I maybe assumed we all saw it that way. It's ongoing work in terms of the way we do business. So the practices, the procedures that we do every day as a way of this is how we do business. For example, analyzing program fees and revenues on an annual basis, assessing just the things that inform the work that we do that are a part of how we do, as opposed to just, it's not like ongoing projects, like
And-
those
and-
that are still in here. Okay, it's anything that is just like, well, this is just how we do business.
And some of that's available in the budget, but if you think about if we merge this document with the budget document, it's real easy to lose track. The other thing what this system I think is trying to do, and it's still got some rough edges in presenting it, but we like to do all kinds of things, and we've been a great board of starting off on a lot of projects, and we get a lot done because of that. But if you take the ongoing, all these are cream or additional work on top of the ongoing. And I think one of the concerns staff has is how do we sort out what we want to do? Because in an ideal world, we want it all tomorrow. Okay, we don't have staff for that. So this is trying to delineate a little bit what we got going. So there's a little appreciation they're doing this plus the regular jobs. And also, as we stack things up, we got to always put it in the context of what's on deck. And it's really, it's a lot less fun to advocate for new projects if it means you got to lose one of your favorites instead. So I think that's what it's trying to get at. Plus, real good way of tracking the strategic plan. Someone asked, how do you know what's happening in the strategic plan? Well, so that's sort of why I see this approach.
Right. Yeah, as opposed to if you recall the old this matrix, the way it came to the board last year, it would have had ongoing maintenance on valve exercising or ongoing hydrant maintenance and repair, and on I&I inspections and things like that that happen every single year or that happen every other year, things like that. We removed those sort of things out of here because that stuff is going to happen, and so look at it this way: if it's on here, it's got a lifespan of probably 5 years or so. If it's not on here, that means it's probably something that we're going to do every single year, or every other year for in perpetuity.
So where are those tasks that are ongoing? Is that something that comes to us? I mean, I know this is just getting in the weeds, but
It is. It's very much getting in the weeds, and
Yeah.
that's why we opted to pull all that stuff out. There's absolutely no way that we could give you. My suggestion to you would be to read the department head reports, and that will give you a good flavor of what we do ongoing.
okay, that's fair. What are the color differences within like blue?
That's very good. So if you look at the header for water, it's a different shade of blue than the vast majority of the things on there, except for item 1.4. 1.4 is any item that's the same color as the header is a policy decision.
I do have an in on the dark blue of 1.4. It for me will, and maybe I'm just showing I'm old, but it would require a revival of Ben Franklin bifocals to read that with the dark color as compared to the other ones. It's pretty hard to read for me. So if you had a lighter color, that might be.
Or maybe if we went a little bit bolder on the dark ones.
Right. Well, yeah. Any way you want to solve it. Any other comments or questions? Well, I think if people get them during this, before we, that would be incumbent to let staff know, oh, yeah, I looked at this and saw some things I didn't see at the board meeting, so that we're prepared on it.
Structurally, I guess my only other question was, is there a way to indicate when these started? Because we have the estimated completion and the percent complete. So I was just thinking, as a tracking tool, if we knew when they were put in here, that would also help us understand, like, how long have we been trying to do something with the Washington Avenue property. And then are you also looking for comments on the content here, or is the structure more of the intended focus?
We'll accept comments on whatever the board wants to make comments on.
And it's ruled in order.
Excuse me?
It's ruled in order to make,
Ruled in order.
to deal with the substantive content. Answer your question directly.
Well, I guess I
I
just
think
had.
very lawyerly of you.
Yeah.
Answer the question directly.
I have a gap for a purpose there.
Might like that.
Does anyone have any other comments while Mary's gathering her thoughts? David?
Nope, I'm
Dennis?
good. I'm good.
Shel? John? Okay, is there any comments?
I think I'm good to see how it rolls out. I really like how you removed the detail. Don't get my questioning wrong. I was just trying to understand how we match this plan with the other documents that we have. And I think I understand that now, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate staff for following up on measurable ways to track the progress as well, and gives really an assurance that strategic plans mean something that's working. So it's a good move the way you combine several different functions.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on. Next item. E2, consider approval of professional services agreement with GHD Inc. to assist in the planning, design, and grant administration of the wastewater system efficiency and renewable energy microgrid project.
Thank you, Mr. President. On May 2nd of 2018, the board authorized the general manager to enter into a funding agreement D17-01033 for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Clean Energy or Energy Efficiency Project, and that is part of the grant funding that allowed us to do the Hiller pump station upgrade, and also the solar project, the microgrid project at the wastewater management facility. So as part of GHD's scope of work, they helped us create the request for proposals, a request for qualifications that allowed us to select Amoresco as the most qualified bidder. Now we're going to go into the next phase of the project, and we want to secure the services of GHD to help us with the planning and pre-design, design oversight, and grant administration support for the project, for this next phase of the project. So basically this item is staff recommends that the board review the information provided and discuss, take public comment, and authorize the general manager to execute the professional services agreement with GHD Incorporated to provide services to assist in the planning, pre-design and design and grant administration for the wastewater system energy efficiency and renewable energy microgrid project, which is attachment 1. The services for this phase are not to exceed $63,000. I would request that the board allow a 10% contingency for a total expenditure of $69,300 on this project. The fiscal analysis is that that this will be covered by the grant, and half of it will be covered with grant funding, and the other half will be a 1.8% low interest loan. Any questions?
Any board comment? And then I'm going to open it up to the public.
It seems to me like GHD is sort of partnering with us on some of the management aspects. So they're like our, what do you call it?
Go-to overseer?
Yeah.
They're
So
providing support. They're providing support during the development of the design and the construction process. So they'll be our direct representative.
And this contract goes into their assistance during implementation, or was that, no, it doesn't, right?
This
And that's
will
what I
take us
thought.
through, this will take us through design oversight.
So we
and
can expect to see, we'll see another
We'll see
contract
another
with
one,
them.
yeah, we'll see another one for construction management and post-construction services.
Okay.
So, subject to any other board comments, I'd like to make a motion.
I want to open it up to the
Oh,
public.
okay,
if I
public
could.
comment.
Does anyone from the public want to speak on this project? I do want to say, pursuant to the earlier comments, this will give us even greater capacity in an emergency power outage, and I think that's a really positive step for the district to take.
Yeah, if I could expound on that, so.
Oh,
as
no, we're
opposed-
not going to let you know.
As opposed to a solar, a straight up solar project, which doesn't operate when they shut the grid down. If there's no feedback from the grid, solar panels don't work on your roof. But since this is a microgrid project and it can run independent of the grid, it will produce electricity, store electricity, and then also we'll be able to use our existing generator to charge the batteries. So as this is a true microgrid project, so regardless of what's happening with the rest of the grid, we won't lose power at the wastewater management facility.
Which is huge.
Okay,
So
bring it back to the motion.
I'd like to move to authorize the general manager to execute the professional agreement with GHM.
Is there a second?
Second
Oh.
it.
Ready?
Well, you can have discussion on the motion, that's fine. I think Mary wants to have
Mary
some
wants to
discussion on the
talk.
motion.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that it was recorded as GHD. I thought I heard. Yeah.
GHD, I don't know, did I misspeak?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I just
Yeah,
making sure it was
the
okay.
agreement with
Okay.
GHD, I might have transposed that. We do have it written down as GHD, but I may have said something else.
Okay, with the clarifications of
Thank you.
misspeaking and back.
So could,
Let me read
because,
this most.
so if I'd be much more comfortable because of the monies that are involved in the modifications of budget, if we could just have this, have the motion be per staff recommendation.
All
I
right,
concur.
I would like to make the motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a second?
I second it.
Okay. Can we please call the roll?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke? Yes. Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes. Item E3, approval of the Hiller Lift Station environmental notice of exemption. And I'll call on Gregory Orsini, our general manager, to report on this.
Thank you. So this item is part of that same grant, the energy efficiency grant from the state revolving fund, and the necessity of this is for CEQA compliance with the Hiller Lift Station. With the Hiller Lift Station pump upgrade project. And basically what staff is recommends that the board review the information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve us filing the Hiller Lift Station environmental notice of exemption, which is attachment 9.
Okay, any board questions, comments? Anyone from the audience wanted to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'll take it back to the board. Is there a motion?
I move to approve item E3 as per staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hey, could you please call the roll?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Burke? Aye. Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
President Corbett?
Yes.
All right.
I have a lot of roles, change them. Okay. Next item, F2A, support services, Colleen Artas, Finance Director, type action, none.
Can we do committee reports first, please?
Can we do the what?
Committee reports first, please.
Oh, you want the committee?
Item F1.
Okay. Active committee reports, Recreational Advisory Committee, Couch Mayo.
Well, we met, we have a good report. Big deal is a lot of interest in BMX at the Washington School Road property. So there's been a survey that went out about that, and there's at least 2 groups who are approaching us about developing BMX there.
Well, there's one group, but Redwood Empire BMX have been trying to move their track to a location in Manila, and that has hit some hiccups and may or may not even turn out to be feasible. They were supposed to find out at the end of October, so at our meeting next week, I'm sure we'll find out what the results of that. If that is the case, then Redwood Empire BMX would combine with this local group of folks, I think, to do a collaborative project. So an update on that. The survey went out, over 240 people responded to it. I'm meeting with the community folks interested in moving forward to develop a plan for a public meeting that will be held on December 11th here at Azalea Hall to do information and listen to people's concerns and also respond to some of the concerns about it. And then there's other steps that they've been assigned before it comes here.
Any questions? Just to the public, we sort of whiz through these committee reports. If anyone wants to speak on any of that, just come to the podium, raise your hand, we'll slow it down, and make sure you get your comments in. Area Fund, John Colstead Burke.
Did not meet.
Redwood Region Economic Development Commission, Mayo Barsande.
Yeah, we didn't meet, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up, and I should have, RCRC Associate free webinar to provide further information and assist counties and us with understanding the tasks that needed to be completed for an application for this $110 million in equity budget for free self-generation incentive program, and there's a webinar about it, it originally was for high fire threat districts for some other type of deal, but now it's been expanded for self-generation incentive type programs. Are you familiar with that, Greg? Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and I will get the information and forward it to Greg if anybody wants to check out this webinar. It sounds pretty interesting to me. And a lot of apparently the applications need to be in by April of 2020, and I think they're, from what I can gather from talking to Greg Foster, that they're going to be pretty loose about the applications, but that the money's going to go really fast. And I don't know whether that's going to benefit us or not, but I thought some of y'all that do this stuff, it might be. So other than that we didn't have a meeting, we canceled.
Well, do we have all the interests consolidated where everyone's supporting the local approach?
Yeah, this is a bit, this particular deal is for rural and low disadvantaged communities and somewhat on the AirWhip model, but not an AirWhip project. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll get this.
Because the AirWhip model really works, especially for fast
small,
track. Yeah.
Fast track and small.
Yeah.
Regions. So.
Was the focus of that economic generation or
No, I don't
fire?
think so. No, I think it's for resiliency stuff, energy storage.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on all the details. Greg just sent this out to us a couple days ago, and I haven't.
Yeah, could you forward that to me, please?
Yes, I will. And I just thought that anytime I see something like that, I think it's something that we'd be interested in. That's my report.
Okay, anything else? Next item, McKinneyville Senior Center, Barsante.
We're just down to meeting once a month because it was kind of redundant, or executive and our other meetings. So we have a meeting about the middle of the month, and nothing really to report. They're trying to figure out fundraising, just like other nonprofits, so we're working on that.
Okay. Next item is audit, Barsante. I think actually Colleen handled it in her report.
Okay.
that it's moving along pretty promptly.
Good. I was surprised there wasn't a trial balance yet. That just totally surprised me, that there's not a trial balance, because usually before the auditors come in, they have a trial balance.
Oh, fair enough.
That's what, it's just unusual for me to see that. Is that typical of what happens?
That's never been required
It's always
for
been that way.
any auditor since I've been here. It's not that there's no trial balance, there is a June trial balance. June has a treasurer's report, it's, it's done by, in time for the August board meeting. So it's not that there isn't one, it's just that all of the year-end, the additional year-end adjustments like PERS, OPEB, fixed assets.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different adjustments that happen at the year-end.
Well, I understand that, I'm just wondering why, is there a trial balance that they work from to do the audit?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
is that is before they find all the adjustments that you have to do? Because I was surprised that it went over to, to the accountants for them to work on that. That was, I just thought that was sort of odd.
Jackson and Eklund, we have a contract with them to review, because there's really no one among district staff that can look at the stuff that they're doing.
Sure.
It makes sense to
But
have
I'm
someone
wondering
else
why
see
it
that.
wasn't
so
in like
that-
September or October. I mean, it's
Well,
getting kind of late. It seems
it is.
usually when you go to audit, the trial balance is ready to go as far as the entity is concerned, and then the auditors have additional adjustments. So it's just unusual. I haven't seen that before. But is that typically what we do?
Usually things get done sooner than this. There were some personal issues that occurred. Specifically, I had two family members go to hospice in September. They both died at the end of September, and I just got back from
It's unusual.
funerals.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
yeah, that did cause a delay, and there is in fact a note about that in my staff report, although that detail was not part of it.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you.
Employee negotiations, Couch.
We did not meet.
Water Task Force, Burke.
Did not meet.
Ad hoc no drugs and toxics down the drain, Burke.
Did not meet.
McKinneyville Municipal Advisory Committee.
We did meet, and let's see. So the MCMAC has been a great place to get updates. We have, what do they call it? Community safety updates. Sometimes the sheriff shows up and the fire district has been showing up. So those have been really informative. And at this last meeting, we had a public hearing for the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And we discussed and then made a recommendation that that this item not, it was a series of meetings that the county was going around to get comments on the accessory dwelling unit ordinance when there's actively changes happening at the state. And so the MCMAC suggested that we not be trying to review an ordinance that was going to be changed by state legislation, but that to wait for those changes to proceed and then bring it back to the MCMAC so we can understand what was legislated by the state and couldn't be changed anyway. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty close. Because we've been, CSDA's been very active with this half a dozen different bills that are related to this accessory dwelling units, and Aqua also. And when I started reading through it and then looking at the legislation, they were only modifying the ordinance to accept the modifications from the October 17th bill that was signed by the governor, and not the other five, or the other three, plus the three that are sitting on the governor's desk at this point in time. And so we asked the recommendation to the MCMAC back, the recommendation from the MCMAC back to the Board of Supervisors is postpone making any decisions on the ordinance until you have the full scope or full picture of what the legislation is going to mean to the ordinance. And so that was our recommendation that went back to the Board of Supes.
Okay.
The next item we discussed was the town center ordinance process and putting forth a proposed schedule and looking at the scope and nature of the first two meetings. So the next meeting, since it's not regular, I wanted to make sure people know it's November 13th. It's planned to be here in Azalea Hall. And this is a sort of public introduction and community scoping. And this is hosted by the planning department. So it's a public meeting. And I hope those interested will attend. Yes?
So, on that subject, could I throw a comment? I spoke to the planning director and also to the part of the litigants in the lawsuit relative to this. And I don't know whether I'm going to get bullet points or not, or whether John is going to get them, but it's looking like there's a real possibility that this whole process is going to get altered radically or halted. And so just you need to keep, not to not have the meetings and talk about, the stuff, but that it may be an exercise in futility, perhaps.
Did you mention litigation?
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that?
I don't know much about it. The county was sued by
CPR.
Yeah,
It's related to the modifications that the Board of Supervisors made to the text. They were supposed to be updating the text in the general plan update to meet the findings that they had made. Since the board excursion away from that was so extreme, CPR is contesting that and saying that they need to update the EIR to match the changes that, I guess the public comment was such that the board made quite significant excursions away from the text changes that had already been approved as part of the general plan and were included in the EIR. So now CPR is contesting or is saying that they need to go back and they need to update the EIR before they can make those
yeah, and that's
changes.
the closer to the legal tenant. The practical is the cluster that are commercial zoning and policies, and the riparian. How many entities get to decide that it's riparian or not, and what the setbacks are, and a few things like that. Those are the kind of the what rubber hit the road kind of things for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that can affect what we're doing radically. So, anyway, just a heads up.
Thank you. And then there were two report outs from the, what are we calling those? Special committees. There's one that's for the trails planning and active transportation, and there was a grant submitted, so that grant was shared to the MCMAC. And then there's the landscaping special committee, and there was a meeting. Did you want to update on that? Did you attend that meeting?
The meeting was supposed to be, it was supposed to be later last week, and Bob Bronco was not able to attend, so we postponed the meeting. It's been rescheduled I think, or, yeah, it's been rescheduled. I can't remember when I reserved the room for it. I don't even remember what damn day it is, sorry. But anyway, it's rescheduled for, I believe, next week.
But you had some successes in communicating with the county about scheduled maintenance and, you know, certain zones, and that was a real.
Right, yeah, so the meeting that we had before that, we actually sat down and got a commitment from, what we did was we agreed on how we were going to designate different landscaping areas and the sort of maintenances that would be required for each one of those landscaping areas, and then the amenities that those landscaping areas would have. So we've gotten that far along, and we've got support from the Assistant Public Works Director related to what those will look like and the amount of maintenance that they will do as far as commercial mowing goes. The next step will be to come up with some costs related to maintenance of the more formal and then costs for implementation of those landscaping areas.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. I just had sort of very, not necessarily related, but slightly related. You know, the county to encourage low and moderate income housing increase in some projects, waived sidewalks, waived
John,
park.
your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to give people the benefit of my salary crunching, so I cut it up. The county in some projects, in order to encourage low and moderate income, has waived sidewalks, waived park stuff. And to me, that's just building a slum. I know they're very interested, we got to give these incentives, but the one place that we really need no waivers is really where we have concentrations of low and moderate. Otherwise, like I said, we'll construct a slum. And that's so if you can keep that in mind and try and get a feel for how serious the problem that is, that's the real issue.
That's a good point, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. Because they tend to want to do that a lot in those.
Well, I don't want to get sidetracked, but the whole county planning thing is to have a massive set of low and moderate income housing. That's how Eureka got districts, that's how the south side of Chicago was created, and how Joseph Stalin, even with his, would execute people for equality, ended up with having districts in Moscow. It doesn't work, and the county is viewing it how to settle a lawsuit, not how to make it work. And that's my concern.
And John, that's a great point, because I was watching the Eureka City Planning Commission talking just about that subject and how they're compressing any parking requirements and all kinds of things, and then saying, and so this is the property that the county has by us, and we're going to get them to do the same thing. So that's a really cogent point to bring up, I think.
Okay, Cornerstone Committee.
Did not meet.
Groundwater Sustainability Committee, did not meet. Humboldt Local Agency Formation Commission.
Well, I have a big report there. So last week I went to the California LAFCO meeting, and I was nominated to be elected to the board of Cal LAFCO, and I was replacing Deborah Lake, and I didn't realize that there was politicking involved, because there was somebody from Nevada County who wanted that board position, and I had to get up and give a stump speech, and they elected me.
All right, LAFCO man.
LAFCO man. So anyway, I learned a lot. LAFCO, it was like a 3-day meeting, and I tried to go to mostly water and affordable housing talks, and I learned quite a bit about those things. Lots of little water districts in Southern California are struggling, and they're looking at consolidating them. So their big example was the Sativa Water District, which was in Los Angeles, actually in the Compton area. And their big problem was they had like 2 wells, and they were consistently delivering brown water to their customers, which made people not very happy. And when LAFCO investigated, that they had no financial reserves, no financial records, no qualified operators, the board was getting Christmas bonuses every year, so the.
Wait a minute, did you figure out how that worked?
I don't, yeah.
Well, I thought I'm interested in that.
Anyway, they got dissolved, and the Humboldt, the Los Angeles Public Works Department became their successor agency, and now they have clean water, so.
So, on that subject, did you, I'm glad you said it was Los Angeles County, but the LA Water District has had similar horrible problems. They have, someone in the organization has embezzled like $50 million inside that organ. Did you guys discuss that?
We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, that's LA Water, LA City, the LA City Water District?
But that didn't come up. That was, but let's see, what were the other things?
The
Well,
ratepayers are gonna
the
have
other
to-
thing I wanted to report back that should be of interest to us was that we were talking about monetary support from counties to special districts. And I learned that the money we get from the county is a negotiable item. And I don't know that we've ever negotiated it. And I kind of was asking people about that, and they were all going, well, it is negotiable, but good luck with that, and roll their eyes. But I think.
And that percentage fluctuates from county to county, and we're kind of like right in the middle when it comes to the percentage of the ad valorem that we actually, that each individual district gets. So we're not doing as bad as some districts, but we're not doing near as good as other districts are related to, depending on what county they're in.
And when the new RDAs come into effect, we might be doing even worse yet.
Could be.
So
But anyway,
keep
I
that,
thought it was
keep that
something
here.
that, we might want to approach the county about negotiating it sometime. If it is at least tell them, the Parks and Rec could use some more money.
Maybe we can get some money.
Yeah, maybe we can. Might be a good thing to bring up at the CSDA chapter meeting.
Yeah.
Humboldt County.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah. So,
All right.
That's it.
Staff reports, support services.
Yeah, the only thing I need to highlight in this staff report is that the audit is not likely to be prepared for the December board meeting, given that we have to finish the review and get the audit committee meeting, and we have holidays in November, which makes things quite difficult. We've run into this issue before, but that was really the only thing, and unless there's questions.
Okay, any questions, comment? Operations Department, James Henry.
I have nothing to report this time. Thank you.
You mean with all the power outages we had and the way you guys were running around for 2 days straight, you don't have anything to report?
I think they acknowledged all that.
Yeah. We're suspicious.
Still tired, probably.
Board Member Burke, and then I have some questions too, actually.
So I was reading the staff is in the process of clearing around meter boxes due to landscaping overgrowing. And I was wondering if, because we have don't we have a new larger bill that goes out to customers, if there could be space to tell people when their boxes are going to be read, and if there's, so as to cut down on, it sounds like a mailing goes out, I'm sorry, I don't keep track of it myself as a customer, but if there was an opportunity to include that information.
There's two issues with that. One, it's difficult in the billing process to extract only those that are going to get looked at and only notify them out of the whole batch. And two, it's also helpful for sometimes because people look at the bill and they either, you know, they just put it aside without looking at it, but if they get a separate notification, InfoSend is doing the separate notifications, and they're doing them as a batch. But if people get that separate notification, they actually pay attention to it. Not always, but more. So that's really why we're rolling it that way.
I would find it hard to believe that any more than 8 or 10% of the people would look at it if we put it on there. Pay any attention to it.
Well, plus the notice of what we're going to do in the rules and regulations are cited in that, and so it's almost the full 8.5 by 11 page with the notice on it. So there's not. We could actually, I guess, we could put them in the same envelope, but I
Just an idea. Sounds like there's plenty of reasons why.
So there's not many. We're talking a handful.
No.
So with the radio read going on, they're not actually lifting the lid every time, so there is overgrowth. We can clear those that aren't being maintained by property owners. We can clear them. When it becomes a bush or landscaping that's there that may jeopardize issues if we clear it, that's the ones that are getting a, hey, clear this, or we're going to clear it. So it's not as many as you think.
Okay.
If you're thinking enough to put on bills and mail out, it's not that many.
Another question.
Yeah.
I just noticed that, you know, we're doing so well on our wastewater treatment system that we're having to add ammonia to the system to eliminate byproducts, and just curious if we were expecting to do this, or, you know, just how that's going. What's going on there?
So we have, based on our permit, we have testing to do, which we have in the past had issues with our chronic testing due to ammonia.
Right.
Our new treatment plant process is so well in advance that it's removing all the ammonia, which what happens is now when you treat with chlorine, you don't have the ammonia to offset or to feed. I'm trying to do the scientific way, and I know you're better at this than I am, but I want to go for it. And to react with chloramines to treat the water. There's no ammonia to react, but there's one test that we are marginally, which is called dichlorobromethane, marginally on that, on going over on that test, not the maximum, but that monthly average. To pass that test or to perform better, it requires ammonia to react with chlorine. So we are going through a pilot study to add natural ammonia that's actually living in our biosolids basin, injecting it into the effluent treatment and adding ammonia that way versus purchasing an ammonia, purchasing the tanks and actually adding ammonia raw. So we right now are doing several pilot studies, taking several samples, sending samples in. So it's, yeah, I think we're going to be great there. We got to send the samples in, which was going to be today, but we had some training today and tomorrow, but hopefully tomorrow and Friday we'll have locations pointed out and send them in to see where we're getting our best results or where the placement is going to be best at. Right now it's not an issue because we're going to land, so we're not permitted by it when we go to land discharge. So we're trying to get it resolved prior to river discharge.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I had one, if you can turn to page 60. I don't know whether this is a running chart or not, but you have 13 months. And so, and then the second thing is the 2013 number is exactly the same, but the 2018-19 number differs from the first time it's presented at 49 to the second time at 44. And I don't know whether it's really, anyway, an explanation or whether it's an accident.
So the only relevance to the chart, the 13 months, which I always do 13 months, is to show you what it was last September. So I include that 13th month. And what this table represents is in 2018, this straddles 2 years. So we're in 19 now. So we had a 44.361 on September 2019. I'm just showing you what we had usage in 18 of 2018 in September. So I leave the same month previous year on there, of course, so you can see a comparison like, hey, how we do last September, it's on there.
Oh, okay.
And so every month, like October, I'll put October on here at the bottom next month, and I'll drop September off, and you'll see October last year versus, so you can compare the two. Basically, we used 5 million gallons less this September than we did last September. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Then the other thing is you had the first 6 months you had zeros. That caught my attention, and carefully reading it, I suspect there should be a minus. In other words, that we're using more than 2013 for those. And then that switches in March.
Yes, so there is no percent reduction or a negative 0.3 or, yeah, I could show it as a negative 0.03 or 0.
Right, I think a negative would be clear.
See the negative number on
Yeah.
that? Okay.
All right, that's all I have. Anyone else? Okay.
I have one thing, and I sent this to Greg, and I'm going to ask him to send it to other directors. On my own, because I was down there for other business, on the 17th of October, I went to the Aqua Regulatory Summit, which was exploring the science and history behind PFAS, precollates, polyfluoroalkyl microplastics, and pretty wild stuff. And so they've got a video of it that we could buy, and I think it's really interesting. I talked to John Frederickson about it at Humboldt Bay, and had Dave Holstill been at Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District at Humboldt. If Dave Hole was there, I would have already talked to him. I don't know who's over there now, but
I think they're still in the process of hiring somebody.
and maybe Blue Lake Rancheria might even be interested. But it's $140 for this video about that's on this conference. And I have Greg send this around if the board determines that you all think it's worth doing, that we can look at it. So it's very, very, it's a pretty trippy deal, these microplastics. So anyway, I just throw that out.
So it's like it's sort of a documentary on
It's
this?
the forum that we had. It's and the panels and the discussion and that stuff. Anyway, that's it.
If we haven't moved off my report, I can add a few more things really quick. Yeah. I didn't know if we moved off of it or not. So the general manager brought up a good point with the power outages, and I will speak to it because although we do appreciate the thank yous, I guess I will give you a quick rundown of how smooth it went. With the first time we got a 12-hour notice, we verified all tanks were filled. If not, we had fuel coming. We scheduled fuel to be delivered the next day. And diesel and propane, we had one scheduled for 2 days out after taking measurements of the tanks. And our hours we have running, our run hours. Most of our stations had between 5 and 8 days of runtime. But you never know what the unknown is. Like, it could be 3 days, it could be 12. Like, we don't know. So one thing we did learn on that first go around was that the commodity was diesel.
Say again, the commodity was what?
Diesel.
Yeah.
That we had our stations full, that we were going to be filled 2 days from the power outage. I made contact with the diesel driver the following day just to verify, and he said, if you want your fuel, you better take it today, because all we have is what's on my truck. I said, it's ours, bring it to us now. There are a few other people were dealing with diesel also, like they had promised a delivery for the following day. What Ritter ran into for a problem is they had fuel at the docks, but had no generator source to put the fuel in the trucks.
Yeah.
So they had no way to deliver it. Got past that one great. The the following outage, we got a little more notice on, and we're able to then reserve our fuel again. We also have an agreement with Hugh Hoovens, who I called it, how much fuel do you have? I have 500 gallons. Thank you, that belongs to us. Please don't get rid of it to anybody but us. So we had diesel tied up. The second go around was a little better. Brenda did figure out a way to slowly get these trucks full. It was a slow process due to the generator, but they were filling trucks, and there was no big concern on that one. After the first event, second event, we topped off. Employees did great. We had our pager guy work, we had to modify and run a couple stations on hand. But everything else were great. A few little hiccups. We had one generator that decided to have a problem with this right then, but we had to back up for it up there. So, but yeah, everything other than, just the commodity of what was going to happen, who was going to start taking fuel from who, it went really well, and our staff did very, very well on it.
James, what is our normal procedure for level when we call for a fill-up?
So we normally have a lot of our tanks are 20%.
So are we going to change
20%,
that?
you call for a fill-up.
So are we going to change that in this new era to maybe do it at 50% or not, or is that inefficient? I'm just curious.
That discussion I have not had with Greg. If we keep getting advance notice, we can get the fuel. What we do have, our North Bank station in Ramey, it doesn't have to run. It holds 1,000 gallons. It doesn't have to run when the power is out until we need the pumps. So you can go there manually, turn the pumps on, let them fill up the tanks, 4 hours, 5 hours, turn it off. So that fuel could last us 20 days.
Okay.
We can also take from it. It's a storage container. We can also borrow from that tank if need be. So we wasn't too worried about fuel other than is 3 going to turn into 12?
Right. Well, and this is something we could probably kick around a little bit at a later date, but is it the possibility if this continues that we might consider getting another fuel tank for another reserve fuel tank, or is that?
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Okay, just a question.
Our generators will run from 9 to 11 days on the fuel if they're full. So what we'll probably propose is that we just keep them at 100%.
So thinking, and I know I'm getting far astray here, I'll say this quickly, don't have to answer, but, back when I remember being in these two big flood events and earthquakes, that we were without stuff for over 30 days, some of us 45 days. Might be something in our next round of discussion to think about that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to get into having storage tanks outside. We just moved all the storage tanks inside where they're locked up.
Yeah.
Because we've had issues with environmental damage from people stealing diesel fuel and leaving siphon hoses running into creeks and things like that. So it's not my intention to have storage tanks.
No, I would, yeah, and I wouldn't expect it to be any work, but at the facility anyway. But just
we also have capacity of storage at the treatment plant. We have a very large fuel tank there that feeds that generator. And once the microgrid project is completed, we would consume less fuel, so we can borrow.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't put that into my thought processes here. So thanks. Yeah.
Well, again, did you have something, Mary?
I guess I just wonder if these outages have caused us to do sort of a strengths, weaknesses analysis of our systems during emergencies, especially considering that was one of the highest priorities from the community for our strategic planning.
We just modified operations. Like there's a lot obviously to this that I'm just kind of going, like the big stuff and not the ongoing stuff. It's, we modified our tank levels. We modified, keep them full. So instead of coming on at 32 and going off at 38, you're going to come on at 36 and go off there. Keep everything full. We just switched to modifying. And we figured routine, we just fine tune it. And when this comes and we get the heads up on it, we'll just go back to modify mode on everything and just make sure everything is secure and then run.
Yeah. So for some of the board members to understand this and remember this, it wasn't too many years ago when we had a windstorm and we'd be without power for 3 or 4 days. So this is nothing. At least we have a warning that they're going to shut the power off. Whether they shut the power off at 4 o'clock in the morning or at 9 o'clock the next day, at least we have a warning that it's going to happen. Or they tell us that they're going to shut the power off and then they don't. So although people that haven't lived here for very long think that this is a big deal, for us people that have lived here for a long time, what we're dealing with right now is minor compared to the way we've operated the district for a long time. So I don't see any real necessity to. We have an emergency operations plan, and the emergency operations plan is such that if things got really dicey, we would open up the emergency operations plan. We didn't use the emergency operations plan for this whatsoever. This is just more modified, regular. The pager guy basically was busy, and he called for backup on different things if there was 3 or 4 things happening at one time. So yeah, it's not. I understand the whole thing. The whole McKinleyville was out of power for 24 hours. For us folks that have lived here for 20, 30 years, we're used to being able to go 3 or 4 days without power, and so is our system.
You might want to consider that sort of a message in the next newsletter. That's a very confident message, and comforting. And it is comforting as a director to get the notification from you. Thank you for that. And again, just thanks for having such a smooth running operation that we can.
And how prepared we were,
Yeah.
and our plans worked. I think that's big, and it is sort of fun watching all the governments and businesses. They're resetting to be more efficient to cope with it better. But I do want to say, outside of us, I think it's bad for business, and so we need a better solution. And that needs to be our messaging to the political class, and it's a lot more complex than just beating up on PG&E. We got a complex set of problems, but my thing is I think California's done very well through the recessions and was a leader in job creation right up until recently. But we got to solve this problem, or it's going to be very bad for business. And so I think isolated in the old days, this wasn't isolated. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And your perspective is very valid. And I remember when I was growing up, we were out of power all the damn time.
Yeah. It was a
plus, you had silt in the water.
Right. When I first moved here, I kept lanterns hanging in my house on hooks, on swag lamp hooks, because we needed them so often. It was just easier just to leave them there all winter long because we constantly had to have them.
And where I live, we were on the old original A line that came down from Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be out for 13, 14 days every time. There was
Yeah.
only like 35 or 40 of us on that line. They didn't care
They
about us
didn't
at
care
all.
about you guys. So anyway, yeah, and I completely agree, President Corbett, with your analogy. Where something's going to have to be done. I mean, the state of California is as progressive and as forward-thinking as we are, where we've got ourselves into a situation where we're losing hundreds of thousands of acres, and half the state's in the dark. Yeah, something's going to have to give.
Well, and that's another real complex problem, but I'm saying I think we need a better solution than having large negative effects not only on our citizens but on our businesses, and we need that economic drive to keep it going. And so that's just where I hope that's our district position to our elected representatives, and they're all going to grandstand on Pacific PG&E, and God knows I'm not a friend of theirs, but it's going to have, they need to address liability issues. They need to address what do you do when people say no, because the utility just goes on to the next person and says yes, I'm trimming the limbs. That's not going to work. There needs to be some changes in the law, and how we do risk. And then also, people don't like to hear it, but you know, electrical boxes, they burned out my whole life. You look up on my telephone pole, and they burn. And you have electricity, and whether you maintain it good or bad, they're gonna burn out, they're gonna spark, and unfortunately, we have very dry weather conditions and some other things, but it's sort of a little bit inherent in having miles and miles of electrical grid. So but my real point is, we gotta solve it to keep business and the California economy being strong, and also to protect our citizens, so better solutions needed. Yeah.
Sorry, one last comment is the two new employees, they seem like very well qualified, great individuals, and I didn't quite get those words out, so if you would please communicate that, you know, really
Of course, in a
excited
year,
to see a couple new qualified, great individuals.
In a year, we'll mess them up pretty good, but, okay, any other comments?
I made a comment to one of the other things, was Humboldt Bay had generators running, so we were always able to have water delivered to
Right,
us.
oh, that was my other question. How many days does Humboldt Bay have?
I can't answer that question. Not that I can't, I don't know the answer to that.
I think that'd be good to inquire them and at least have people know that people are asking the question. And since they gave us water, we ought to write them a letter of thank you. Thank you for being prepared. Thank you for delivering it. We counted on you and you were there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
One of the other things that was interesting is normally, like, we fill water tanks based on PG&E's peak pricing period. So, you know, during the peak period of the day, you fill the tank up in the start of the day and then let it go low, and then at nighttime you fill it up again. But because Humboldt Bay was on generators, I was like, well, just fill it. And they actually said, can you take some water, please?
Yeah, when they were using diesel fuel instead of electricity, instead of using PG&E, yeah, there was no issue, there was no consideration for the peak.
So
now we're done with peak anyway.
Again, I'm just very happy with the district's response. We're spending enough on this that's prudent business, but we're not gaga on it and just spending money. And at the same time, we really delivered when we needed it. That's big. That's big. Thank you.
Yeah, we're prepared. I would say that we're prepared for. Yeah. Shut me up now.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a polite way of saying it.
I was going to share another. In Arcata, we our emergency fuel supply is the Renner station out at the Alder Grove area. And we actually have a lift station adjacent to that with a generator, so we power Renner based on our generator. But of course, they sold fuel.
Yeah.
Like, well, wait, guys, you know, you're
that's the
supposed
same
to
thing.
be saving that for us.
We have a MOU, or we did have an MOU with the Chevron station next door to the district office. The only thing is so that we can take one of our generators over there, hook it up, and be able to pump fuel. But they've got to have fuel in their tanks for that to work. And they were completely out of fuel the first one.
Well, Renner still had it, but because they were open, they sold them.
Well, yeah. So the thing is that the Chevron station in front of us, they're Redwood Oil. They're not Renner. So.
All right. Next, Parks and Rec Director's Report 2019. Leslie.
I have only two things to comment on. Between the writing of this and today, I heard back from Coast Central Credit Union. They received requests for over $610,000, and they only had $100,000 to give away. So we were not funded for flooring at the Activity Center. But I was contacted by the California State Office of Grants and Local Services regarding our application for the Pearson Park extension and renovation, and they are coming to do a site visit about the project. So it just means our application hasn't been thrown out yet.
Cool.
There were, I think, 5 applicants in Humboldt County. 3 of them are getting site visits. So that was good news.
Tell us where the other 2 are, and we'll go down and cause a ruckus.
I'm
And that was how, what was the grant, what was the price tag on that grant that you wrote?
That I wrote is $3.4 million. A little more than that, but less than 3.5.
Cool.
That's all.
Any other comments, questions? I got two quick ones. One, I did want to thank you for the $10,000 grant with Coast Central. I thought that was a really good move. And then also, and I know it's in here, but expanded, staff continues to work with the McKinleyville United School District to ensure adequate staffing for MUSD, expanded learning after school program. I told you that with Humboldt Child Care Council, they had a similar thing. The grant was taken out from underneath them. The school got dependent on them for staff because they're really not very flexible what they can do on staff. 3 years later, they got the whole thing back. The school said this is just getting to be a headache. So it's really good to keep your finger in the, keeping that door open. And if past history applies, and it's very hard for me, I don't have enough details, but I suspect it does, then you may find the whole thing coming back because they got teachers, they got nurses, they got that, but they don't, and they have some teachers' aid, but they don't really have staff for some of these programs. They think they're really cool, and the first year they scramble around. The second year, how do we staff it? And the third year, oh my God, how do we get the hell out of this grant? So, good for the future, and I appreciate your efforts on that. I think they're strategic.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, that's a good point. I just wanted to make a comment to that. In almost everything, you need the right tool for the job, and we're the right tool for that job.
Okay. President's report. I have nothing to report.
General manager.
General manager. He's riding too high in that seat. No, a general manager report.
So the only thing, my report pretty much speaks for itself. I did a brief write-up on the public safety power shutdowns. The only thing that I would like to bring to the board's attention is we have a hazard mitigation grant for procurement and planning, design, and implementation of a 4.5 million gallon tank site at the Cochrane site. And we had a meeting, an environmental and environmental and historic preservation review kickoff meeting with FEMA on that in October, and that is pretty indicative of a coming funding agreement for that project. I believe that grant is a $6.5 million grant, and it's 75% grant and 25% match. So if things go as they should with that, probably by this time next summer, we should have a funding agreement in place to be able to build that tank.
Okay. Anything else? Questions? Board Member Burke.
Well, one question I haven't asked about the services we provided during the shutdown is what was the use? How many community members roughly came and used our?
I have no idea that. I checked on you're speaking of the CRC, right? The Community Resource Center. I went over there probably half a dozen times, and I was never able to speak to anybody in charge. So I really am not sure exactly how that's administrated or what goes on over there, but there was a constant flow of people, but I was not able to get any sort of statistics related to how many of our community members they serve.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. I was able to talk to the guys, but it was early in the mornings. I would go down real early when I was they said they ran out of stuff every day. They ran out of their stuff every day.
I mean, I think almost everyone noticed the unreliability of the information. And that made it even more important when we got your notice saying, hey, I'm just following on, but we should be in good shape. That was really important because I think the district was believed a lot more than PG&E or emergency services.
Yeah, I had, you know, when I was sending the board those notices, I would get a bunch of them, and James can attest to this because he was getting the same ones. It was like we'd get like 2 or 3 of them, and you'd have to kind of sort through them and try to figure out which one.
Take the average.
Yeah, I'd take the average and figure out, because a lot of them were contradictory with each other. And then finally I would just say, well, I'm going to go ahead and report something, and I can always say I was wrong later, as opposed to, whoops, I forgot to say, I didn't say anything about this. And so as you see, I sort of assessed the worst case scenario and made sure that the board was up to date with those sort of things, and our staff was also notified of all those things too. And it didn't turn out to be as bad as what I reported to you, but at least it was, you know, I was trying to.
Well, it looked like you were in charge, looked like you were on top of it, looked like you were going to make sure we got as good a water service as we could. And if it was going out, I felt there was time from that notice I could run upstairs and fill my bathtub with water.
And
that's really important in those things.
Well, and the thing about that is that you didn't really have to worry about the water, because the water never, the water was never, and I wanted to make a statement during, or this comment during James's section. But during the first PSPS, I called Chief McDonald and let him know that everything was going to be fine, and he goes, well, thanks for the call. He goes, but I didn't have any doubt that you guys would keep the water flowing. So anyway.
So in the mornings when I came over here, the guy would have 1 or 2 addresses for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I always brought my little 2000 generator with me, and I told him that, and he did. And I would go over and run the generator for their ice ball.
How to recharge the refrigerator,
yeah. So that was kind of a good, what is that? Synergistic, or what's the right? When one thing tells another and you do it, what is that?
Synergistic.
Yeah. So that was good, you know.
And I was on Facebook on the McKinneyville Community Watch, and there was tons of people saying, what's gonna happen to the water? And so I just copied what you wrote and printed it in there, and
thank you for doing that.
Questions. Well, thank you. That was really nice to have.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
Very
good job by everybody.
And then everybody remember we're on the verge of a historical moment of finishing at 8:30, so I hate to be abusive with the gavel here. But
well, I'm sure the board's vociferousness we can probably put that to rest and go to 9:30.
We'd end at 8, John.
Just curious how many applications we've had for the general manager position.
2 complete. The other ones are not complete.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then this local limits, whose local limits? Is that regional board local limits that you've written about in your?
Oh, those are our local limits. Those are our local limits in our sewer use ordinance.
Okay. There.
All right. Any board additions to the agenda from board member comments? I'm hearing none. 8:30, move. I knew we had
8:28.
We'll probably have to meet till midnight the next